Hello, my name is Vincent M. Nash. I am the owner of Nash Transportation, specifically for the purposes of this video. And I would like to say thank you for joining me. I would also like to say that please press the subscribe button. I would love to have you as a member of my group. Today, specifically, this video speaks on building wealth through non-emergency medical transportation. So I'll just write that down real quick. NEMT, non-emergency medical transportation. What exactly is non-emergency medical transportation? Basically, that's transportation taking the elderly, taking handicapped, those with various mental challenges to doctor's appointments and even non-doctor's appointments. And the purpose for this video today, I get a lot of people who ask me, how do you start a transportation business, a non-emergency medical transportation business? And as people begin to ask me this, I found that I'm in a very unique position to offer knowledge, to offer a little bit of insight into an avenue that I believe can help you build wealth. Specifically for those like myself, urban youth who are in the communities, who feel oftentimes trapped, who feel oftentimes that there is no way besides your typical sports, streets, or music. There are a lot of avenues in which you can utilize the same amount of passion, the same amount of dedication, but it will help you to build your wealth. So I've got NEMT here, and it's not the neatest, but basically what we want to do here, and the purpose of this video, is how do I utilize NEMT to increase my wealth? A little bit of information about myself to help you understand, and I'm not going to go into depth, but I graduated from high school. I then went on to go to college at Howard University, the HU in Washington, D.C. I had an awesome time there. The whole time that I was there, I majored in business, but I had the type of entrepreneurial mind where I knew I wanted to work on my own. I had an interest in music, but I was in school for business. I ended up graduating in 1998 with honors. I was blessed to have a couple of stints of internships on Wall Street. So I got some very in-depth corporate knowledge while I was in school. When I graduated in 1998, I went on to work for the largest consulting firm at the time in what was called their strategy division. So I was considered a strategy consultant, which was really looked at as the top tier level consultants in that organization. Believe it or not, a few years into that, I just left it. I knew that I did not want to work until I was 60, 75 years old, working 9 to 5 for a pension. I knew that I wanted to take control of my destiny and work for myself. So the craziest thing, again, I'm not going to get fully into it, but I completely quit this fabulous corporate America job. I was living in Atlanta, working downtown on Peachtree Street, had a gated apartment out in Smyrna, Alpharetta, Georgia, was living the life. But I stopped all of that to start, at that time, a record label. And without going in depth with that, that was a failed experiment. That was a failed experiment for me. And I say that only in the sense that the career didn't take off. I actually failed to my lowest, ended up having to move back home. My mom owned the daycare. I stayed in the basement of the daycare. So this is going from graduating with honors, working corporate America, Atlanta, losing it all, trying to chase a dream. Ended up in my mom's basement. And then I found myself, selling microwaves at a retail store, and just really, really depressed, really feeling as though I wasn't living up to my potential. And a seed was planted in me at that time to possibly look into non-emergency medical transportation. And that's really the purpose of my video today. How can you utilize non-emergency medical transportation, otherwise known as NEMT? This is not the neatest. You guys have to bear with me here, okay? Non-emergency medical transportation to increase your wealth. How can you utilize this to increase your wealth? And here's my message. My message to those that may be listening to me, to those who are struggling to find a way to change your life, to become more successful, to become more prosperous, to be an example for your family, to be a role model for those in your community. I believe that non-emergency medical transportation is one avenue. I also would like to say that in between the path of non-emergency medical transportation and wealth, I'm just going to put right here, real estate, okay? I'm not going to go into depth here because I don't have a whole lot of time, but I personally believe that utilizing non-emergency medical transportation will do what? That will allow you an avenue to acquire revenue. And I think that that's the key, obviously, when you're trying to build wealth, is somehow you have to initially get revenue. And this can be done via jobs. This can be done via entrepreneurship. I personally, for those that subscribe to my channel and subscribe to my station, I will be speaking on entrepreneurism. I believe that entrepreneurism is the gateway, especially for my African American brothers and sisters in my community that are trying to reach financial freedom. I believe that entrepreneurism, building a brand, creating value for that brand is definitely the way to go. However, I do believe that once the revenue begins to come in, that real estate should be the next step. And so I say that also to say that those who subscribe to my channel, those who follow me, what you're going to hear me speak on is you're going to hear me speak on entrepreneurism, the joy, the passion, and the love of entrepreneurism. Specifically, you will hear from me non-emergency medical transportation. But then I also have a real estate company. And so I'm basically, the path that I have taken is the same exact path in which I will lay out for those that follow and subscribe to me. And it's really a community of people who are going in the same direction. I by no means am where I need to be, but I get so many individuals that ask for assistance, that ask for help, that ask for advice, that I believe I can offer knowledge. And even though I'm still a baby when it comes to things like real estate, there are insights and there are things that I can share and that I can pass along. So I will be definitely in this video talking about non-emergency medical transportation, how you can utilize that to build your wealth, but always realize or always keep in the back of your mind, real estate is a very important part of that for me. And along the line, I will be putting up lots of content. I'd like to put up things such as when I'm closing on a property, maybe take you through the closing process, take you through some of the thoughts and the emotions that I go through when I'm going through the underwriting process, especially from the advantage of an urban African-American young male. I, again, at one point in time, tried to create a record label. You can look it up. It's on Spotify, Venice. It was the name for Show Entertainment. That was my love. That was my dream. And oftentimes in my community, I think that we as individuals get so caught up in the never quit that sometimes we don't find the path that was originally laid out for us. by our Lord and Savior. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but there's a path that's for you. We oftentimes try to take our own path and try to create our own way, but that's where I think you fall short. For instance, with me, God blessed me with what I feel is to be a beautiful mind. All throughout my life, even as a young child, he has had things that have happened to show me that I had some intelligence about myself. I could have utilized that in music, but that wasn't the path, and therefore it didn't really go the way it was supposed to go. So I say all that to say, I have a saying, the power of reinvention. You can reinvent yourself. You do not have to be stuck in the same bucket that someone else put you in or that you thought you were in at one point in time. If you grew up and you could dribble and you just knew you were going to be the NBA player, but it didn't work out that way, there are other avenues. If you like myself, thought that you were going to be an international rapper, fly around the world, it sell millions of records, but it didn't quite happen for you like that, you can reinvent yourself. You can still put that same dedication. You can still put that same passion into being an entrepreneur, into opening up your own travel agency, opening up your own transportation company, opening up your own restaurant, opening up your own consulting firm, opening up your own accounting firm, opening up your own landscaping services. You can do everything that you want to do in life through entrepreneurism. And what I'm going to speak on, okay, is non-emergency medical transportation. So let me go specifically into non-emergency medical transportation. And that's why we're here. Okay, how can non-emergency medical transportation increase your opportunity to build wealth? All right. So, non-emergency medical transportation. What you need for that is one, vehicles. Okay? And there's so many aspects. There's so many aspects of this. When I talk to people, I tell them I could do a seminar alone on vehicles. Okay? I could do a seminar alone on compliance. And what I mean by that is your insurance and your state licenses. And then the third thing that I'm going to put right here are contracts. I could do a seminar alone just on the different various contracts that are out there. I can do a seminar all on just the dedication and the passion of an entrepreneur. I could do a seminar alone on the maintenance that's required. But I'm going to stick with these three. So how do you get a non-emergency medical transportation business started? And I'm going to start here. Again, I'm going to do more content as we go along and as we post these, but I have to have a starting point. So let's just recap. And again, if you like what you're hearing so far, please subscribe. Please let me know if you've had any feedback. Let me know if there are topics that you'd like for me to talk about. But just to recap, building wealth through non-emergency medical transportation. And again, non-emergency medical transportation is going to provide you the revenue that you will need to make the moves in life that you need to make to build the wealth. Along the way, I believe that this revenue should be funneled into real estate as well. And those are things that we'll touch on later on. But as far as non-emergency medical transportation, how do you start? How do you start? And one of the reasons why I think that this is a good industry for my urban youth to look into is because you just need one van. You just need one van and yourself and the gumption to get out there and make it happen. So let's talk about vehicles for a second. The first thing you need to do is you need to go out and you need to get the vehicles. All right. So there are two types of vehicles usually used in non-emergency medical transportation. Minivans, which are for ambulatory, and ambulatory are those individuals that are not in wheelchairs. So you can just pick them up in a minivan and you can take them to their doctor's appointment. They don't necessarily need a wheelchair. And then there are wheelchairs. So you've got ambulatory and you've got your wheelchairs. Now, I personally believe that you need to go for both. Okay. I just don't, if you're going to enter into an industry, then you need to go all out. If you can only provide a solution to half of the clients that a person has, then your value is decreased. So if you're going to go into the business, that's how I personally feel. Now, I want to say one thing. I tell people this all the time. Your journey is not my journey. Let me say that again. Your journey is not my journey. And what makes me successful is not the same thing that's going to make you successful. Ultimately, what it's going to be is what you do to get out there and make it happen. But I can guarantee you, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, okay? And I was one of what I feel, and I mean, that's just but I feel like I was one of the first to really take this game seriously, to really not look at it. And as we get into contracts, we're going to talk about Medicaid. But I decided not to just look at the low-hanging fruit, but I really put myself into the game. I sold myself, and I went out there and I acquired some great relationships. And I believe for those that are listening to me, for those that are tuning in, you may be from California, you may be from Michigan, you may be from Texas, you may be from Detroit. You could be anywhere. And I guarantee you that there are people in your region who have not fully tapped into this service, who have not yet tapped into the potential, okay, of this service. I would just want to give you a statistic. The non-emergency medical transportation market did $21.82 billion in 2017. $21.82 billion in 2017, and is projected to do $31.5 billion in the year 2026. Everybody knows that the baby boomer generation, it was rocking. It was rocking. And the logical progression of that is that those that were born in the baby boomer generation are now at an age where mobility is challenging. And that's where I come in. And that's where I offer the service. And trust me, it is a service that is needed. It is a service that is needed. So I'm just trying to give you the inspiration for wherever you may be to take a moment of your time and ask yourself, how can I better my life? How can I better myself? And I believe in inspiration. I mean, how can you listen to someone who hasn't been successful doing what they're trying to teach you to do? I don't believe in listening to anyone that can't actually show you the tickets, that cannot show you the results. So I say this not to brag, but it's inspiration. Non-emergency medical transportation has allowed me the opportunity to buy a beautiful home for my family. I love my home. Pool in the backyard, basketball court, peace and quiet. I love my home. Natural sunlight. Non-emergency medical transportation allowed me to do that. A few years, I've been in this game now 6 years. A couple of years before that, I was living in a one or two bedroom apartment with my cousin over my grandmother's house, renting with a bed bug infestation. Okay, I was making all of about $20,000 to $30,000 a year selling microwaves at a retail store that depressed me every time I went to punch in. I knew I had the capability to do better, but I was not. Now, fast forward 6, 7 years later, I've been in the game 6 years. I have a home that I bought for my family, an asset that has added to my net value. I also do real estate. My wife has a unit that she bought. In addition to the home that I bought, I've been able to buy 3 additional units. So in 1 year, my wife and I acquired 5 units in real estate. So again, I'm not just saying this to get on here and I'm giving you the tickets. I used the non-emergency medical transportation that gave me the revenue to go and to acquire things like real estate, but to help me to increase my wealth. It's the truth. My net wealth is now the sum of my home, of all my rentals, and of the money that I have in my bank account. Whereas of 6 years ago, 7 years ago, it was probably negative. So this is a path that I have taken. I went out and I acquired vehicles. And again, what kind of vehicles are we talking about? Wheelchair, and we're talking about ambulatory. So those are the 2 types of vehicles that you need, okay? What's the second point? All right, so that's vehicles. The second point that I want to go over in this particular video is compliance. So once you get the vehicles, you need to be in compliance, meaning you need to have your insurance, commercial insurance, for the ability to drive people from place to place. This is a very litigious industry, okay? You will be sued at some point. Don't try to cut corners. That's the reason why I think it's important to go over up front. Do it right. Just get in the game, give it your all, and do it right. Because if you try to cut corners, you may end up putting yourself in a position where you lose it all. And that just makes no sense whatsoever. So once you get the vehicles, make sure you get the insurance, make sure you get the proper state licenses. Now, this can vary from city to city, county to county, state to state. So you need to look into your county's regulatory requirements, state licensures, the different things that you need to do to be able to operate as a non-emergency medical transportation, okay, company. And then also the contracts. To me, this is the most important, okay? Because the contracts are going to be split up into 2 categories as far as I'm concerned. There are what comes through governmental agencies and insurance. And 90% of the people who utilize this service are going to come through insurance because Medicaid pays for it, okay? Now, if Medicaid pays for it, then they're going to use it. Most people don't want to pay out of their pocket if the government's going to pay for it. However, there is a 10, 15% of the population that is private pay. Now, this is where I'll give you game, as they say. The Medicaid portion is controlled through the government. They're going to tell you how much you're going to get paid. In some cases, they're going to tell you who you can have and who you cannot have. They're also going to tell you when you can have them and when you cannot have them. Now, this is in direct violation to the theory and the practice of a free market enterprise. I'm not going to go too deep into that. That's a complete other seminar that I could go through, which is how Medicaid is in complete contrast to a free market enterprise, which brings up its own challenges and inferiorities of service. But I'm not going to get into that. That you cannot control, but you need it. You do need it because of the mass, because of the sheer quantity. For instance, you may get with ABC Insurance, and they can give you 100 clients starting tomorrow. They can also take 100 clients away next week, but that's neither here nor there. It is an important part of your clientele, but it is not all. Okay? The second part, and this is the game, is private pay. Private pay. The relationships that you build with those individuals or entities or organizations that cannot utilize Medicaid. I fell into this by accident, and I'll tell you how. When I started non-emergency medical transportation, I had very little knowledge of the industry. I did not know that 9 out of 10 people who get into this, they get into it by signing a contract with an insurance carrier who then provides them clients. This is how the majority get into this business. I had no knowledge of the business. I came from a sales background. Remember, I told you I was selling microwaves for a retail shop. Well, after that, I ended up selling media. I ended up selling radio and websites. And before that, I used to sell presentation folders. So I've always been into sales. So the first thing I did when I bought my vehicle and I wanted to start business is I downloaded all of the organizations that I thought would utilize a wheelchair transportation company. I then printed out flyers, printed out cards, got my spiel together, and I went to each one of those organizations and I sold myself. I went to each one of them and I looked them in the eye and I said, I can provide you the service you need for your clients. Will you give me a try? Will you give me an opportunity? And I'll give her a shout out right now. I remember Virginia Collins, who I still work with to this day. 6 years later, Virginia Collins at a nursing home. She calls me up one day and she says, hey, you stopped in here last week. Can you start Wednesday? And I was actually working at my job when she called me. And that was also the day I quit. I knew I couldn't pick up clients and still try to get to work. So it was showtime. And to this day, I have numerous private pay clients, individuals that I went and sold my service to that I work with today. So I have not only Medicaid insurance, but I have private pay clients. And let me tell you something about private pay. Those are relationships. Relationships. I believe wholeheartedly in creating relationships. Relationships will stand the test of time. Relationships will increase your value. Relationships will bring you wealth. So my private pay relationships combined with my Medicaid, and don't get me wrong, with your Medicaid brokers, you're also going to develop relationships. But with the two of them together, I now have the icing on the cake. So I've been competing with individuals who mainly rely on Medicaid insurance, where I have that as well as my private pay. Because I'll tell you, just relying on Medicaid insurance alone can be very thin. Okay? There are lots of costs involved with doing this business. The compliance part, the insurance, that's a hefty bill. Taxes, hefty bill. Workers' comp, hefty bill. Payroll, the heftiest bill. So by the time that eats up all of your expenses, what do you have to carry you over and give you the icing on the cake? That's where the private pay comes in. That's where the private pay comes in. So what I'm saying to you that are listening and watching me right now, those who have been just in a myriad of complacency, those who are just looking, wrecking their brains, how can I create value? How can I build wealth? How can I get myself out of this predicament that I'm in? Non-emergency medical transportation and I know this may not necessarily be the neatest. This is my very first video. I think I'm having some issues with my lighting and maybe as well as my background. But non-emergency medical transportation can provide you the revenue to build wealth. Along the way, I highly encourage you get real estate. I highly encourage you get real estate. I won't be doing transportation forever, but I hope that my real estate carries me. I can't even say until death, because it'll go beyond. It'll be there for my children. So this is my very first video. Again, please like and subscribe if you liked what you hear, or if you liked what you heard. I will be putting up regular content. I don't know how often. I'm trying to get the hang of this, but I would definitely like your feedback. I definitely like to know what you'd like for me to talk about. And let me just say this: I am not special. First of all, in the world of success, there are levels. There are levels. So there are those that come to me and ask me for advice, but there are those that I look to and encourage me on a day-to-day basis. I encourage you to get a mentor. Find somebody that inspires you, positive, progressive, and maybe I might be one. Maybe this station might be one. Subscribe to it. But I highly encourage you to do that so that you can find the inspiration to carry on. Vincent M. Nash again. I am a non-emergency medical transportation provider. I want to give a shout out to Joel Davis, who doesn't know me from a fly on the wall. But shout out to Joel. When I first started, I looked him up. I got his materials. It's good to learn from somebody. So when I started the non-emergency medical transportation business, I started listening to Joel Davis. He also, in his own way, inspired me to give the same message to my community. So that's the message that I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, if you like what you've heard, please like and subscribe to my channel. And this will be the first of many. God bless and have a great day.